It was rainy skies, and some really great social media pictures at the Hungaroring Sauber team, and the I think it was the Haas team, and a few other teams pretending to swim. It's kind of crazy. I was apparently the pit lane is the highest elevation at the track, so for that to be flooding is a bit of an issue. Tim Hauraney. Literally Hauraney. We're staring down a Hungarian Grand Prix. We are also looking at the Toronto Indy here in Toronto this weekend, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I think we got to start, Tim, with the big announcement this morning, which is Kevin Magnussen will not be renewed for next season with MoneyGram Haas F1 team. Not totally surprising, although Kevin has really given them his all this year in terms of being a team player. Oliver Bierman already signed up for next year. Some people thought, I think, well, Kevin could be a good mentor to this person. But it's rumored that Esteban Ocon, I believe, is going in. What do you know about that?
Adam, we talked about Esteban going to Haas on here
weeks ago.
Oh, man, I want to say it was June, the beginning of June-ish. And I still stand pat that's where he's going. He seems, after today, pretty confident that his future is going to be secured in Formula One for next season. I think it's a great fit, and I think obviously it's going to be good for Haas to have that experience, because they need an experienced driver to partner with Ollie Bierman, and that's just the way that goes. I think, like, when you look at the teammate dynamics, because I think a lot of fans will have issue with that. I mean, obviously coming off of what happened between Gasly and Ocon in Monaco, and then he had not really a fallout with Fernando Alonso, but they had a couple issues, but then you had a fallout between Perez and Ocon at Force India. So I think for Haas, it has to be laying down, I think, the guidelines of keeping him in line when it comes to himself and his teammate. And maybe it could just be simple as, like, look, you're here to help Bierman, you're also here to help us, and that's what we want you to do. And so I think he's got to be on, who knows, man, maybe on a short leash with them. Like, who knows with racing drivers, right? Like, you never know. Once you put the helmet on, man, you become a totally different person. So we'll see what happens. But I think, like, that's a good fit. I think, like, he does deserve to be in Formula One. I think Esteban Ocon is a very talented driver. And yeah, he deserves to be on the grid for next season. He's quick, he's fast, he's experienced, he's all the things. So I'm kind of excited, if that's where he ends up, because I think Haas needs, not to take anything away from, like, Nico Hülkenberg or Kevin Magnussen, but I find that, like, dealing with Ocon in the media, it's a little, he's easier to get a conversation going with.
Sure.
Make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Nico and Kevin seem a bit, they're a bit more stoic.
Yeah. I find, like, Nico's good when you get him going, but Kevin's can be a little more difficult, and that's fine. That's just the way he is, right? I mean, that's just all the way that's just the way it is, right? And,
quieter guy. Yep.
And he's a racer, and I like that. In Kevin Magnussen. So it would be, it would be a shame if he was never racing again. And I don't think that's the case either. I mean, I
was going to ask you, do you think he's got a home somewhere else on the grid?
Probably. I don't think in Formula One. I mean, could he go back to endurance racing? I mean, sure. I'm sure there's a lot of big teams that are running, LMDH programs that would love to have the services of Kevin Magnussen on their team. And then you look at IndyCar, and I think that's a series that he would thrive in as well. Like, that's a series filled with great talent, hard racers, and I think he would fit right in, to be honest with you. I could see him going to IndyCar. He has been there once, right? He's done a stint there before in the past. It just depends on which team he would wind up on. I mean, I know Prima at the moment, who's going to be entering two-car program, Chevrolet engines into IndyCar for next year. I mean, could he go there? There is a possibility. I mean, they haven't announced any drivers that they could be looking at. Alexander Rossi, potentially Logan Sargent. So I can still see Kevin racing somewhere, Adam. It's just not in Formula One.
Right. And that's, it brings an end to a career that was very, very successful by any state. Like, I know people are like, well, he's no Lewis Hamilton. Well, nobody is.
Yeah,
this is a guy that's been in Formula One for 10 years. He came in with a lot of high expectations through the McLaren program. Yep. There was thoughts that maybe he could be one of the next greats. And I think he always had the talent to do it. Sometimes there was some questionable decision making, and sometimes Kevin got saddled with a bad car. Like, let's be honest, the guy, the McLaren car he stepped into was bad. And then, he had a couple of good years at Haas when they were surprising and finishing mid-pack, finishing 5th place, I think was their height. And then ended up on some pretty bad Haas cars and found himself out. And the fact that he was able to come back, just like Nico Hülkenberg, to Haas, score points right away. I think that's a pretty damn good career. I think he wouldn't be upset with that.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, like, his 2022 season really stands out to me in particular when, coming back to Formula One, it was like a shock re-entry into Formula One for a lot of people. Being like, whoa, here comes Kevin Magnussen off the ropes back into a Haas car. It was great and showed out immediately, right? In Bahrain, first race with the team in like quite a while, and he was fantastic. And I think that full season for him, just the right mixture of car balance and driver being comfortable within what the car was giving him was perfect. But it was then when, they lost their way with their first rounds of upgrades, which, if I remember correctly, they came at this same time back in 2022, and the team just kind of really started to lose their way from there when it comes to this regulation. And then you fast forward to now with a teammate like Nico Hülkenberg, who has been performing at the top of his game. It's been tough for him, right? I think you said it well, Adam, off the top, when you said, he's played the team game well, and he has, right? I mean, if you remember back to, Saudi Arabia stands out to me, right? Just holding everybody up so Hülkenberg could score a point for the team. So, we can't. It's not that he's been a horrible driver. He's been doing his best to stick around in what is a tough regulation for racing drivers to kind of wrap their heads around.
Is there any chance that he goes and becomes like a reserve driver, and the outside chance he comes back like Nico Hülkenberg with Aston Martin?
I don't think so, man. Like, I think this could be it for him. Like in Formula One, right? Like I said, I think there's probably going to be opportunities for him in endurance racing, WEC, potentially IndyCar. I just don't know if he would want to come back to Formula One as a reserve driver, Adam. You know what I mean? Like, it's like he's kind of done that. Like, he's been in and out and in and out. And I think after a while, that kind of gets old for a driver.
Right. And, with young kids, is endurance driving something that you can make good money at? Can you, and is it a reasonable schedule? Because Formula One is very hard on people with families. Kevin's got, I think, a couple kids under the age of 3. Like, it's, there's no question it's tough on families. A lot of reasons. I think James Vowles said, I intentionally have not gone that route, like having a wife and kids, because he's like, I know it's just not, I cannot pull focus from what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, James now has like wife and child and all that stuff.
Yeah, which is hilarious, by the way. I just want to say.
Yeah, no, he's in a really good position, right? Don't want to hijack this segment and take it off course, but like for James Vowles, he's in a good place right now, right? I mean, team principal at Williams, helping them rebuild, can help. Has a little more control over a schedule. Where it's like with Kevin being a racing driver, you don't really have that. You don't have that control over your schedule. You don't have the command of that. And yeah, Kevin, wife, kids, he's got a family, and he's got to take care of them, right, at the end of the day. So in endurance racing, like, you can make a really good living. And for any racing driver, you always want to, it's hard to make money coming up the ladder system. It's getting these opportunities here or there with an auto manufacturer, racing for them, driving for them, testing for them, whatever it is. You kind of like are working towards that when you get to that level where it's like, I need to get paid now.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance to get paid, just to get paid, Adam, as a racing driver, I mean, that's like, you've really made it, because it's very, very hard for drivers to make money at this. Like, it just, it really is. And to make it a professional career, like, I don't think, like, I didn't make very much, like, in my racing days as a pro. And it's really hard to kind of really break through and make good money at car racing. So for Kevin, like, he's going to be fine. Like, he's probably done fairly well with Formula One. And like I said, like, I can honestly see the big manufacturers coming to him, offering him good money to come and race in world endurance, go back to the 24 hours of Le Mans, 24 hours of Daytona, and just compete in endurance racing. Same with IndyCar. Like, those drivers are getting paid, reasonably well now in IndyCar, which is great.
They are.
And again, you're going to make a good living racing with IndyCar as well. So
yeah, a couple mil, something like that. Sometimes it's not bad.
I mean, like, some of the contracts I've heard about, like with IndyCar, I'm just kind of like, what?
Oh yeah, I know. Like, I say couple mil is like a midway point, right? Like, there's some spicy contracts. in there.
Man. Some of them are getting like good money now. Like, I remember back in the day, man. Like, you were, buddy. Woo. We're getting anywhere near that. I'll tell you that right now.
So obviously the weather in Hungary is a bit of a concern. Is this race going to happen, Tim?
Well, I mean, it's not as bad as here, Adam. Like,
yeah, no, we had flooding here in Toronto. You're right.
I shouldn't laugh. We going to get? It's horrible.
Are we going to get Spa 2021, or are we going to get a real race here?
I don't think so. I don't hear anything that's going to say otherwise. We're not going to get a race weekend. I mean, the weather could change. I'm not a weather person, but I mean, looking at the photos of what's happened, I mean, holy, where did that come from? And then all of a sudden it's dried up and the sun's come out and they're back out and on pit lane doing their work. I mean, who knows? For McLaren, though, they took a hit. The weather damaging their hospitality unit. I mean, they've had a hell of a time with that hospitality unit.
Yeah, because they had to share it with Mercedes for a bit. Yeah.
Dude, catches fire one weekend. And then the other teams have been great with McLaren and offering them their hospitality, feeding their crew and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of shows you that, like, obviously they're competitors on the track, but really take care of each other off track. And that's obviously nice to see. I feel bad for McLaren, man. Like, it's tough when you got to like redo your hospitality unit because of damage. You have to remember you're entertaining like so many clients, so many partners who've traveled there to take in the event, and you want to make sure you're putting on a good show for them within your hospitality units and making sure they're getting fed well, treated well, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really tough for McLaren, Adam. And the message I received from them this morning, I woke up and I saw it and I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, you guys having like more damage to your hospitality unit, which you've already rebuilt once. So
yes,
feel really bad for them. That's tough.
So I'm looking at the forecast for the weekend on Formula One's website, and it's saying 20% chance of rain every single day. Daily highs in and around 33 degrees Celsius. But yeah, Heat's nothing crazy.
Tough.
Nothing crazy.
Heat's going to be tough, I think, Adam. I think it's going to be really, like, I've talked to some of the trainers and from other teams and drivers, and it sounds like the heat, humidity is going to be very challenging this weekend for everybody there, including like team personnel and everything. Everyone's going to have to, make sure staying hydrated, right? Like, it sounds like it's going to be a tough weekend in that respect. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, like, for the drivers, it's just all about making sure you're staying on top of your hydration, making sure you're locked into your nutrition. I was on Chris Medland's show on Sirius XM yesterday. Mm-hmm. He was traveling. He had flown into Austria and he had gotten in he is driving in And he said just in Austria, he said it was like sweltering. And so like going into Hungary, he said he couldn't imagine just how hot it's going to be there, because he said usually when he goes to that race this time of year, he's like, you just get cooked. It's a very hard race.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And a hard race and a difficult one to pass. What is it about Hungary that makes it so hard for people to pass?
Yeah, it's just no real passing opportunities there, right? You got turn one, then you've got like that sort of what is it? Corner two, I don't know if they call it 2-3 or if it's just 2, but essentially it's after turn one. So you've got those opportunities. But other than that, that's it. I mean, you're not. The rest of it's like a go-kart track. It's tight, right, twisty, quick, nowhere to really pass. I mean, it's kind of like qualifying is going to be a big. Qualifying is going to be a big thing with this race this weekend. If you're not nailing your qualifying, then it could be a tough weekend. So, I mean, for drivers like Adam, like Sergio Perez, we've been talking about it, right? Like it's for drivers like him, like you don't. If if he doesn't qualify well, it's going to be a tough weekend. And, a driver like that can't afford that. And for Red Bull, I don't know how strong they're going to be here, Adam. Like it's, I
was going to ask you, what do you think? Because that's a big story.
It could be a really difficult track for them, considering the amount of curb riding you have to do for some of the turns. And we still don't really know what their update that they brought to the British Grand Prix can like really do. I mean, I remember, what was that? I think it was after Saturday's qualifying when Verstappen had damaged part of the new floor, because Sergio didn't get the new floor, but Max did, and he had damaged it, but they had a spare for him for Sunday. But I remember like Horner saying, I think it was Horner, he said like we'd lost like 100 points of downforce, and I kind of overheard that, and I was like, wait, what? Like that's not how is that possible? Like how much downforce is this thing creating? 100 points? I'm like, that's massive.
Yeah.
And so, I think Helmut Marko revealed to German media it was around 6 points, but still like 6 points of downforce is, I don't know, you're looking at a couple tenths for sure, I think. And so it'll be interesting to see like what that new update of theirs brings to the car. There could be more updates for them this weekend as well. But we'll see how that all works out, because Adam, I think like for their updates that they've been bringing to this car recently, they haven't really been working for them. So
there was a rumor out there, and of course I love these rumors, is that that Adrien Newey has, as the seasons have gone on, has been pushed out of his suggestions have been pushed away a little bit, and that the reason that Red Bull's upgrades haven't been working as well is because they haven't been listening to him. Do you think there's any truth to that? Do you think that the other parts of the departments are taking over, and Adrian sort of stepped back, and that they maybe stopped listening to him? Is that possible?
I remember like he had said that back in, I believe it was 2022. It was the fact that he wasn't as involved as he used to be in the development of the car. A big thing for him during that moment was the RB17, which we saw being unveiled at the Goodwood Festival of Speed last weekend. The car looks beautiful, by the way. But that was a big project for him. And I think he was basically just overseeing everything about the F1 car as a whole, like he was the top of the umbrella, so to speak. I think like when Adrian Newey talks, man, you listen. And I think like every engineer who works in Formula One will tell you that it's, the guy has so much pedigree, so much championship winning pedigree. He's built so many championship winning race cars that when he talks, like you listen. So I don't necessarily like believe that until he actually comes out and says that. I don't know if I believe it, Adam.
Okay, yeah, because it just seemed a little implausible. Right? Anything's possible, but it's like, really? Yeah. Okay. I think they're a smarter group of guys.
But it's like with any sport, right, Adam? When you get someone who's been through it and knows how to like either build like a winning team, like a general manager, or coach like a winning team, you know, you listen to them, like because they command that respect, but they have so much experience that it's like, why would I ignore someone that has this much knowledge giving it to me so I can go and either, you know, build a better race car, build better components, build a better team, you know, build a, you know, coach a better team, whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it, put it. But it's just like you would want to listen to that, I think.
I think so too. It
doesn't make sense, right?
Who do you like this weekend? Who are you feeling like, oh, this is looking good?
I like Mercedes.
Really?
I do. I honestly think like this is, I've said it before, I think this is hunting grounds for them, Adam. I think like, I mean, they have a great record here. Lewis Hamilton has a terrific record in Hungary. So I could honestly see Hamilton scoring another win. Man, I could see it. I could see it for sure. Like they're on a great trajectory, right? Like, I mean, after Canada, well, I should say in Canada, really, they've just unlocked a lot of potential in this car. I think they're still probably about maybe they're 2/10 somewhere, like 2/10 in race conditions. They're still looking for that. But like outside of that, Adam, I mean, they were incredible at Silverstone, and that's like a high downforce track. And so for Hungary, you want to crank on as much downforce as you can. And so, oh man, I think this is going to be a good race for them. That's my, you know, I don't know, but like I think this could be a great weekend for them.
I wonder about Ferrari here because Fred Vasseur said, I thought this was a really great quote. He said, "Our upgrades this week should make us the protagonist," meaning the main character, meaning we will be him or her. What do you think about that comment?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
You can't be faulted for doubting Ferrari a little bit at this point, right?
Yeah, like here's the situation. They brought quite a few updates to this car. A big one in Spain. It hasn't really worked. And for free practice sessions, like during the British Grand Prix, you know, they were testing things with the car, trying to find where did they go wrong with their recent updates and try to learn, you know, from where they gone wrong with what they'd brought to the car. That's a smart move from the team. I mean, you always want to make sure that as a team, you don't rush things to the race car. And when you do put something on it and it doesn't work, you have to understand like why it doesn't work so you can make sure that you're building something that is going to work. So if you've got something in the pipeline that connects with a certain component on the car, but that certain component's not working, you need to understand why so you can get this new part that you're bringing to the car to work. So I think it's smart that they sacrificed some things during the British Grand Prix weekend. Okay. And coming into Hungary, my personal opinion is, Adam, I think they're going to struggle. I think it's going to be a struggle for them until the summer break. I don't necessarily see them doing well here. I don't see them doing well in Spa either. I think when we get to September, though, I think we're probably going to see a different team. We'll probably see them back to where they were at the beginning of the season as that's, you know, the second strongest team. But again, we're now talking about Mercedes being one of the strongest, McLaren as well, Red Bull, obviously, and, you know, Ferrari. So I think as we get deeper into this season, teams are just going to get more and more competitive. And like Formula One, I think, is going to be absolutely fantastic from September to the end of the season.
We saw that there's been a lot of articles written about McLaren and potentially a passing window, meaning like, hey, you got a chance right now to win races and you're blowing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did. Yeah. They did blow it.
Yeah.
And I think, and I said this on the last show, that I think it's a championship team that they lack, whereas Red Bull, Mercedes have them. They all have won championships recently. McLaren hasn't won since I think 07 or 08 with Lewis Hamilton. It's been a long, long time, right? So not a lot of people left over.
2008.
Yeah. It's a long time ago. So it's going to take time to develop that. They do have great development back where, back at the, infamous McLaren headquarters. Like, they've done a great job with this car. How do they do at a track like this? Oscar Piastri, by the way, said this morning that the last time they had an issue with the hospitality suite, Lando put it on pole. So he's feeling pretty confident. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. I mean, I think for McLaren, it's just that championship pedigree that they're just lacking as a whole, as a team. I think like they've got the strongest car. I don't think they have the strongest team, but moving forward, there's no reason why they can't be. They have a lot of really talented individuals working on this crew. The team works their ass off. I mean, I can see them being strong for the rest of the season. And, it's like Zach Brown had said, Adam, if Sergio continues to struggle at Red Bull and they keep scoring at the rate they've been scoring, they will win this Constructors' Championship. And think about it, if this weekend doesn't go Red Bull's way, and McLaren scores well, I mean, they are right in it. Like, I got to look up the points because they're not far back, right?
Yeah.
And I think like you close that gap enough, and you give yourself, I want to say like, you give yourself a chance heading into the summer break where you've then got, I want to say, what do we got here? 9 or 10 races probably?
Yep.
11. What is it? It's like probably like 11 or 12 races left after.
I can count right now.
The summer break. But taking a look at the point standings, I mean, Red Bull Racing at the top with 373, but then McLaren with 295. They're not far off. And the same goes for Ferrari, who's in second. McLaren's in third. Ferrari,
by the way, 10
second.
races. You're right.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Ferrari in second, 302 points. And, you can score big points in a weekend as well. That helps close that gap. If Red Bull, struggles, then these gaps are going to get closed even quicker. Is Mercedes, though, is my question. Can they also be in contention as well? I mean, because they're all going to start taking points off each other. Well, I guess they already have, when you look at just how strong that top four, base is. 221 points for Mercedes and the constructors. So it's interesting. Like, this isn't a Red Bull runaway in the constructors. I mean, the drivers is a little bit different, obviously. And I think if like you're Lando Norris, and I mean, the potential for him where he could have won, I mean, heck, Adam, like Imola, right? Could have won there if there was just a few more laps left. Maybe not Monaco. Canada probably should have won Canada.
Yep.
Spain probably should have won there as well. Austria, I mean, he doesn't have the collision with Max. He's able to avoid that. I mean, chances are he wins there as well. British Grand Prix, they make some different decisions when it comes to tires, probably wins that as well. And then we're talking a different story when it comes to the Drivers' Championship.
Yep.
Just it. He would have chopped into Max's lead enough that we would actually be sitting here like, and that's how close it is. And that's exciting. I mean, it sets us up well for the rest of the season to have a great rest of the season, but it sets us up as well for like next year. Next year as well is going to be probably
one of the best years. Could be amazing.
I think we're probably going to be looking at like one of the all timers.
It's interesting.
Setting itself up well for it.
McLaren, I think, for their confidence, I think they need to be, obviously you need to focus on driver championships, and I get that for Lando, but you really need to win the constructors this year.
Yeah.
You've got so. Red Bull with a driver that's struggling. You got to win that. Yeah. You got to win that. And speaking of, I want to talk a little bit more about Red Bull, because there was rumors this week, and I don't know how true these are. I don't know what you've heard about a potential, Ricciardo out at VCARB, Liam Lawson coming in, Yuki Tsunoda put in there, and then another junior driver going into the other VCARB spot. Yuki Tsunoda going to the Red Bull senior team, which is interesting because it has always thoughts on that potential. Again, these are rumors. It's Formula One. There's plenty of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's Red Bull too, right? I mean, sometimes, we never we never know what Red Bull's thinking, because with their drivers, it's sometimes things happen so fast at that team, Adam, that a lot of people don't see it coming. But I mean, I think a perfect example is, there was a reporter who asked Yuki earlier today, asked him if he deserved a seat next to Max Verstappen, and he just bluntly fires back with a yes. And I agree. I think he does as well. I think he deserves that opportunity. And, if Sergio continues to struggle, and we talked about this the last time on the show, is that he could be replaced during the summer break at Red Bull Racing. They could terminate his deal for performance issues. And why not move? If they're thinking on doing that, that's the moment where you're like, all right, screw it. We already have a driver who is really struggling. We're going to move on from him.
See what a half season can do. Yeah.
Let's take a chance on Yuki, and let's see what he can do. We'll bring him up for the rest. Exactly. We'll bring him up, give him a chance, give him some time, and we'll make a decision on what we want to do for 2025. I think that makes more sense, rather than taking a driver like a Liam Lawson and putting him in there, denting his confidence. And now you've got, you got to try and repair that, and that's going to take some time. So it's better to move Lawson down to VCARB. I think your best bet is to move Yuki up, and if you're not going to move Yuki up, then I think you move Daniel up, and you see what you've got left with Ricciardo. I think his experience.
I think he's qualified well. I do have to say,
massive. I think you would want that on your team. Yeah, he's it's just been like Adam, like we've talked about with Daniel, it's just like the inconsistencies, right? Like he's got these ups that are like really up there, and then he's got some lows, and it's trying to get that consistency with Ricciardo of the qualifying and then the racing at the same time. I just think that he has so much experience that I think you just have to move Daniel up if you're going to move on from Sergio, see what Daniel's got to offer, and then you can reassess whether or not you want to move Yuki up. But again,
he does.
It's a tough one, Adam, because I think he deserves it.
The rumors of Daniel being out at VCARB at the end of the year, obviously there are going to be rumors if he's not re-signed, right? So that is going to happen. If he does go, does he land back in Formula One, or is that it?
Yeah. I had read something that it was like Red Bull would help him secure a seat somewhere else on the grid. Yeah. And I don't necessarily believe that, because why would you do that if you're Red Bull, right? So it doesn't make sense. I think there would still be teams that would be interested in his services because of that experience that I speak of. It's whether or not it's going to be are you going to take Carlos Sainz over Daniel Ricciardo? Are you going to take Valtteri Bottas over Daniel Ricciardo? I think you have to look at those drivers first before you take a look at DR. Yeah,
I think you're right. Yeah, no, I think.
Well, I mean, think about it though, right, Adam? I mean, what would you do? Let's say you're Williams.
I think you're bang on that. I think Williams probably too needs. They need experience. No more rookies in there for a bit. They need to really. They need to take a step forward at the end of this year and then into next year. They really, really need to, and I think that they can, and they're going to need experience to do that. I love the idea of Valtteri either there or at Mercedes, just for a year. And I think he's a calm, cool guy. Alex Albon is going to be the star there. I think Valtteri, of all people, knows what it's like to be second fiddle. And I look at Carlos Sainz too, and I go I mean, Williams would be a great long-term fit for him, but I don't know that's what he wants. He seems to be waiting for something to go wrong with one of the big teams. Yeah. And, maybe it's this Sergio Perez thing, but I don't think that's going to work. I don't think Red Bull's going to happen. And so I don't know what he's waiting for. I feel like he should make a call and go with it. Daniel Ricciardo, who I still think is a Formula One driver on the fringe, especially when he does qualify well and does race well, you go, man, it's there. It's there. With rookies, you don't. So the thing is with Daniel Ricciardo is something's there. With the rookies, you have no idea. You have no idea. They'll step in. They might do well. Like, listen, Nick. Everybody was hot and bothered about Nick DeVries scoring points in that crappy Williams a couple years ago, and he made it 8, 9, 10 races with AlphaTauri and was gone. Like, it really is like there's a reason why some of these teams are like, no, I might go veteran on this one because at least I know what I'm getting. So yeah, I do understand what you're saying. I think in that pecking order, he's third. But he could also change that. In the next couple races, if he races well, then Formula One, it changes in an instant. So I don't know. It's a very interesting one, and I think Daniel, one day here in the next few years is going to switch into being a commentary guy, and he's going to be fantastic at it.
Yeah. I think we're going to get some movement in the driver market in the next few weeks anyways, Adam. So we're probably going to have a better understanding of where everybody's going. At least either before the summer break or just before the summer break, we're going to probably get some news on where everyone's landing. Drivers don't normally like to be in summer break with not knowing what their future holds. And so, yeah, we're definitely going to probably get some news soon, I think, on driver movement. Some of it with the experienced guys, it starts with Carlos Sainz. Like what's going to happen with him? Could he roll the dice and, maybe wait and see on what Mercedes wants to do with their driver lineup for the future as well? Because there's been, like we've talked about on here, there's been some rumors that they're having some conversations too. And could Carlos go to Red Bull? I mean, I don't think so. I don't see that happening. I mean, I don't know how,
I don't know if Yas gets along with a lot of people.
Yas and Carlos Sr. don't really get along very well. And if you're Red Bull Racing,
I don't know that he does. I don't think he cares either, by the way.
Can't comment on that, but I mean, I think if you're Red Bull Racing, do you want to have to manage that? Probably not. So I think for Carlos, we've been through quite a bit of what his options are.
Absolutely.
The next step is him just making a decision on what he wants to do.
So with that said, Tim, you're doing the Honda Indy this weekend. Friend of the show, Gavin Ward, is going to be there with McLaren. But also there's so much else going on. So can you run me through what because you're doing double race weekend, man. That's why you got that haircut. It's you got to be quick.
Busy.
That's right.
It's gonna be busy. Got to be aerodynamic for this weekend, buddy. You gotta. Oh man! So talking to Gavin today, actually, doing an interview with Gavin today, and we're gonna do some stuff with Pato O'Ward. We're going to do some stuff with Stingray Rob, and we're going to do some stuff with... Who else we got booked?
Just Zach Brown.
That's somebody else. I can't remember.
Is that
I'm
all?
Blanking on this. This is horrible. Oh, Zach Brown. Yeah. So, no, it'll be... So I'm hoping that, we're able to kind of knock all those off, and... people can go to TSN to see all that stuff. I'll post it on my social when it all gets recorded and we make our pieces out of it. But it's going to be a busy weekend. I have to really plan how am I doing both jobs because they are different in their own way and unique in their own way, and I have to cover them in one of them's happening on the other side of the earth, and it's you gotta plan your time properly. But I'm looking forward to it. I love this weekend. I know it's busy, but I love IndyCar. I love when they come to Toronto. This is a very tough track. It's it's a race that obviously near and dear to my heart because I've raced in it so many times, and it's a grueling event for the drivers. It's a brutal, punishing event, and I love it. And
of course.
It's just brings back good memories.
As a street track, what's Toronto like? How do you describe it?
I guess maybe that's what I was driving towards. It's bumpy. It beats the hell out of you, It's hot. It's always in around the same time of year. And in and around the same time of year, it's always just brutally hot, like just like 35 degrees. Track temp is probably way higher than that. And, you know, you're just getting beat up in these cars. I wish they would actually move pit lane. If I was going to have an opinion or a complaint, I wish they would move pit lane back to where it used to be and open up the last few corners. And, you know, because the last few corners, they were really challenging in a Formula car. They're really fast and really challenging. And now it's, you know, not as much. I mean, the bumps kind of really slow the cars down a lot and doesn't make it as challenging. I mean, maybe the bumps make it challenging in its own respect, but the corners aren't as challenging in that section as they used to be. So I wish they would try and find a way of fixing that, because it would make the last sort of section like way hairier for the drivers. But yeah, no, I love the track too. It sounds like it's going to be a really busy weekend for them, which is great. I mean, like, you know, Adam, it's been a tough go for IndyCar, like all over since the split, and then obviously being rebranded as IndyCar, and trying to really build that fan base back up. And they've done a really great job of doing that. And I think this year for this particular race, it sounds like it's going to be
well, I mean, it's
very busy.
Open wheel racing is on the rise in North America. And you know, it's more than just Formula One. Indy is a spectacular series, so much fun. And the drivers are just fun. They're great. Yeah. They're open. They're talkative. They're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they are, right, and there's no BSing around with them. Like, they give it to you straight. There's not a lot of like PR talk. Like, you ask a question, I mean, they give you an answer, like we've seen. Like I think Pato Award's like a perfect example of that, where it's like, you know, you talk to Pato, and Pato gives it to you straight, and I think that's all anybody really ever wants, right? He's very blunt, and I appreciate that.
I am with the family this weekend. I'm trying to make it down, but
are you going to go down, or what are you doing? What's your weekend like?
My daughter's not quite at the racetrack age yet, but I'm going to start to take her to Canadian Tire Speedway and stuff like that, because I think like my kid she's just very sound sensitive. So, you know, obviously I'm going to get the cans for her to cover her ears. But I want her to start to see racing the way I did when I was a kid, right? Like, my dad started taking me around 6-7 years old, and she does watch it every weekend with us on TV. So she is forced to watch Formula One already. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to make it down this year, but I think next year is going to be one where I actually take her for the first time and, you know, try to get a pit pass, walk her through, like, so she can see it and see all the colors. And, you know, she's a very colors oriented person. So, like, you know, if we're watching a Toronto sports team, she knows that most Toronto sports teams are blue, except for the Raptors. She's aware of the Blue Jays. You know what I mean? Like, we're at that stage. It's not like deep competition with this one. She's not like some child prodigy that's like, no, I need to compete. I'm 4 years old and I've decided I will be a race car driver. You know what I mean? Like, those kids are like a 1 in a million, and that's pretty intense. But yeah. I look forward to that being sort of one of the things. Like, I haven't even taken her to a hockey game. So, you know, I'm going to start to introduce that stuff this winter. It's bizarre, but you have to like see, like, what's your kids, because like a racetrack, like you said, it's boiling hot. Like, I remember that. That's one of the first things I remember about going to racetracks is it's so hot. A lot of the times I was at like Watkins Glen, so it was really dusty, end of summer. And like, how much stamina does she have? You know what I mean? So yeah, so I'd take her to like a practice or something and let her see it.
Yeah. My brother and my dad took my little nephew to Mosport last weekend for the I think it was IMSA was going on there. and endurance racing. And so, yeah, he's like, oh, I'm going to be a bad uncle here. I think he's like 6 or 7 years old and around that range. So my brother's
What do you
listening.
think?
Don't kill me. But yeah, no, they took him up there to see the cars and everything. And yeah, I think he had a great time from what I've heard. They had a really fun time. So that's, I mean, as when you're a kid or whatever, that's all you want, right? You just want to, you want to expose them to different things, new sports. I think for for my family, it could be a little worrisome because it's like, racing kind of runs in the blood. So it's like you don't want to get them like too close to it because then you're like, oh, okay, go-karts. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I remember being so jealous of the kids because
where is this going to go?
I remember going to see Ron Fellows and like when he was like at the top level in that yellow Corvette that he used to drive. And behind, I think right next to that portion of the track that we used to go to and park our car and unfold the chairs and sit out was the go-kart track. And I remember watching the kids practicing on the go-kart track. Oh man, that would be so much fun. Yeah. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess like my family was telling me like it was Mosport was the busiest like they'd ever seen it this year, and I was like, really? I'm like, that's fantastic because I used to race in those weekends back in like 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 04, like 05, 06, etc. And then was back there again. I think it was around like 2010, 2011, 2012. And it was like, you could really see that the fan engagement was lacking significantly. And, my dad sometimes would come up and watch, during those weekends as well.
That's great.
And like, he was just telling me a couple days ago, he's like, I'd never seen it that busy ever. Like he's like, it's as busy as it was when like F1 used to come here. And that's a long time ago, right? You're going back to probably the 70s, I want to say. And so like my dad was like, he's like, it was
I remember. Yeah.
He's like, it was so hard to get around because usually you used to be able to just drive your car around the infield and and just kind of like hang out in your car and just watch the cars go by or whatever. He's like, no. He's like, he needed to get a cart, like carted around to some places.
That's
they had
cool.
like shuttles running. He's like, it was packed. He's like, I'd never seen it like that ever. I was like, wow, that's great. I mean, that's incredible. And that's for like endurance racing, right? That's really good. That's positive.
Yeah, and,
like
and I'm hoping that it leads to more people,
sort of
picking up the sport and making it. Canadians, we've had, relative to our countryside, a good, or our country size, we've had some good entries. And so I think it'd be very, very cool to, see in the next few years here, more Canadians sort of emerge, Agreed. There is not a lot going on there.
Hopefully there's more like, hopefully there's like more initiatives with like partners, sponsors. No, there isn't. There isn't a lot of like Canadian participation on the business side to like help, find young talent and kind of help it come along, because I think there's big benefits in that. I mean, remember back in the, like the players' days, right? I mean, obviously it's tobacco branding and all that stuff. But like, I mean, they nurtured young talent, brought it along. There's so many great racing drivers who came through the players program who could have been in Formula One. Like it's
exactly.
Like that's
I completely agree.
So
and I remember that Tagliani and Tracy and there was one other guy, and that's it. Yeah, like there's some really good names. Yeah.
Carpentier. Yeah, I mean Greg Moore. Yeah, Greg Moore. Right. You had like, oh boy, Lee Bentham, David Empringham, Rob McDonald. I know I'm missing another one. I'm definitely missing someone else. There's definitely
cool.
A couple more.
I'm
involved in that as well.
You know what, man? I hope I do hope that this continues to snowball, right? And like it is in other countries. And obviously we have a limited season here because it is so weather dependent. But especially in Southern Ontario, you can probably actively get out and race from right up until like I guess probably end of April. And right up until the end of early December.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I mean, like, I remember we were testing, like, when I got my first test in a Formula Ford to try and get onto the team, like, I think we did that in like November. Out at Toronto Motorsports Park, is what it's called now, I believe. But yeah, it was freezing cold. It was like getting ready to snow. But then we were in testing mode, like, March, towards the end of March, April, starting to really kick things off. So, you've got that December, January, February period where you can't really do much. But I mean, heck, if you go to Vancouver, Adam, you go to you go up north to like area. Oh God, I'm gonna get this wrong. Area 27. Ugh, don't kill me.
And that
you go up there,
like,
whatever.
That's the thing is we got to find those kids that can do that, and we got to find the billionaires that have the interest in it too, because it is a very expensive sport. That's part of it, right? That's really part of it. Well, listen, Tim. Good luck this weekend, man. I can't wait to be following along. 100%. I'm sorry I won't see you down there. I think next year is the year for my daughter, and frankly, when I have I don't have the bandwidth to just leave her for the whole weekend. Although I'd really love to escape to the Hyundai the whole weekend. I'm not going to lie to you. I just don't know how much my wife would appreciate that. really. I'm jealous of those guys that are like, yeah, I just snuck off for like a golf week with the boys. I'm like, I am not at that stage. But say hello to Gavin and enjoy the whole experience, buddy. You're doing the double duty this weekend. It's a lot of work.
Will do, buddy.
So Tim, my respect to you, and we'll talk Monday. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam. It's going to be fun. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you on the weekend.